Hi, welcome to Paranormal Kativity. Tonight I want to talk about nightmare death syndrome, which is also sometimes called unexplained death syndrome. And more specifically, I want to talk about an instance in 1981 where this claimed 18 people, all within one specific group of refugees who just relocated to the US, all within a very short period of time. This instance actually inspired the creation of one of the best horror movie villains of all time. So it was 1981, and while these unexplained deaths do occur naturally from time to time, for there to be such a high percentage of this specific group of people experiencing this, it threw up a lot of red flags. These attacks only really occurred to people between the ages of 32 and 34 and were almost always male. Out of the 18 victims that occurred in 1981 in this specific area, all but one were male. So the Center for Disease Control came in and they did some research and study on this group to see if it was something biological or environmental or something that happened to occur because of their relocation, or if it was something genetically within them, or if it was just some weird coincidence, but they needed to know. So they did all of the research that they could at the time, and they never found anything to specifically identify why this was happening to this group of people. Today, many people feel like what actually occurred is that this group of people happen to all have a specific type of syndrome that affects your heart rhythm. These people just had their heart stop, and it happened to coincidentally be during their sleep. But with a heart condition, you would think that that could occur at any time, day or night. That shouldn't really be a factor. In the 1950s, a lot of these people had started relocating due to war and just wanting to go to a different place, and there was a lot of Western influence that was coming into where they were originally from. With that, a lot of their traditions kind of fell to the wayside. It was a tradition within them to already be doing offerings and rituals towards a specific, basically sleep phantom that they felt could come at them in their sleep to steal their breath. As they shifted out of their normal traditions, some of their normal rituals and habits kind of fell away. As those started to diminish, these attacks may have increased. And it was said that once you started being subject to these attacks, if you started to do your rituals again and your offerings and basically apologize, then these attacks would stop occurring to you. So what would constitute an attack? An attack is essentially a very panicked feeling, sensing with all five senses somebody being in the room with you while you're sleeping, and a very intense pressure on your chest to where you can't breathe. So that sounds like sleep paralysis, right? So while this specific sleep phantom comes in your sleep to steal your breath, there are sleep phantoms throughout pretty much every culture all around the world. The most common phrase that I've found to describe this sleep entity is the Old Hag, or Old Hag syndrome, sometimes called the night hag. Each culture is a little bit different and each description is a little bit different, so I kind of wanted to explore a few of those in this video as well because they're really interesting. In some places, the experience of an encounter with the Old Hag is a bad omen, and usually it foretells some tragedy that's about to occur. Some people feel like the Old Hag is a curse, and that it's brought upon people by reciting the Lord's Prayer backwards. Some people wear amulets to ward away these attacks, and usually in those cases, they feel like the attacks are brought upon by their enemies. Could be somebody who's jealous, who just all around has something out for them, who's put some type of curse on them, or maybe that they're working with some type of dark or negative entity to be able to send that curse their way. There are those who feel that this attack can be brought upon whenever you're coming down from different stimulants. And that made so much sense to me because anytime that I've ever experienced sleep paralysis, I would say like a solid 95% of the times, it's whenever I've had too much caffeine. Usually she's described as being an old woman with long white hair, very long dirty fingernails, and really just being dirty all over. In one specific area, she's actually described as waiting on the rooftop to step on the chest of people who fall asleep with a stomach full of food. So no more midnight snacks, guys. In other places, she looks kind of like a goblin, and sometimes even has the description of what other people might know as a succubus. Then there are still other places that describe the entity that takes your breath in your sleep as being an animal, like a dog or a cat, which instantly made me think of Tales from the Dark Side, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and one of the storylines is about a cat, which if you've never seen it, go watch it. It's fabulous and 80s and campy and hilarious and great. There are some forms of this entity being described as a spiritual spouse, which I'd never really heard that term before. But according to that myth, they are coming to try and attack your spouse here. And if you are under such an attack, you're supposed to have a full-blown exorcism to get rid of it. Many people classify the Old Hag as one of 3 forms of shadow people, with the other 2 being the hooded figure and the Hat Man. During the Salem witch trials, anytime that somebody experienced one of these attacks in their sleep, it was always blamed on witchcraft. There are tales that every house has one of these sleep beings in it. Specifically, some feel like they live under the stairs. And that they are more aggravated and more likely to attack you if your house is unclean or if you stop your spiritual practices. There are a few things you could do to try and stop an attack while it's occurring or to prevent one. One would be, if you notice that you're in the midst of an attack in your sleep, try and wiggle your big toe on your left foot. That's supposed to stop it. Or you could sleep with a piece of silverware under your pillow to ward it away. So overall, almost all of these instances describe the feeling of pressure on your chest, an inability to breathe, and essentially just basic descriptions of sleep paralysis, which I have a video on sleep paralysis. So in a lot of ways, it's just a personification of sleep paralysis symptoms to kind of give explanation to something that people may not have realized is a natural thing that occurs to people. Now the difference would be with the group in 1981, with them all passing away from it in their sleep. There were tons of articles written about these groups and specific times that they were talking about feeling like they were under attack in their sleep, feeling like something was out to get them, that they were going to go in their sleep, and then they did. Now one specific person, Wes Craven, happened to come across this article and he got inspired to create Freddy Krueger because of the thought of a sleep being coming and attacking people and taking them in their dreams. Now it's been said that both Wes Craven and Robert Englund would tell this story at tons of conventions and online and in interviews about his inspiration coming from these stories. On numerous occasions, he would cite reading about this specific instance, whenever this all occurred, of somebody being so scared of going to sleep, so certain that they were going to not wake up, that they would hide a coffee pot in their closet and secretly sneak and drink coffee all night long and stay up for as long as they could, days on end, to prevent being taken in their sleep because they were so sure that it was going to happen. After hearing about this story, I went and scoured the internet as far as I could to try and find this article, specifically quoting about the coffee pot. I cannot find it anywhere. While I was unable to find the actual article that cites that happening, I did find a lot of other really interesting articles about this occurring in the 80s, and they were all just really interesting. There was a lot of good information in them. So the information that I found, I will definitely link below. But if you happen to know where the article would be that talks about the coffee pot, will you please send it my way? Message me on social media, send it to me someplace. I would love to read the article that he was specifically referencing for all those years. Either he may have misremembered it, or maybe it just didn't end up on the internet for some reason, which I find unlikely, or maybe it's out there and I just couldn't find it, but I would love your help in locating the article. That would be amazing. And while instances like this have occurred before this and since, it's still probably the most standout instance of a lot of these occurrences happening all together at once. So regardless, it's still a super interesting story, super weird, and I would love to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on it. I'd also love to get your thoughts and opinions on sleep paralysis in general, since it's been a minute since I really touched on it in my last video. What do you guys think? I know my audience has kind of grown a little bit more, which thank you so much for 30,000 subscribers. That's amazing. I would love to know what you guys think. Do you think that sleep paralysis is something scientific and logical and just happens to humans, or do you think it's some type of personal attack? I know I more recently watched the documentary that's on Netflix about sleep paralysis. Thankfully, I had not had sleep paralysis issues really around that time at all. I've only had it like once since then, and whenever I do experience it, I never feel like it's any type of like spiritual attack, but it seems like a very common feeling among some people who experience this. So I'd love to know your thoughts on sleep paralysis in general, if you kind of go with the more like traditional beliefs that have been carried down from different cultures around the world and different generations, that maybe there's some type of outside of our realm of thinking reason behind them, or do you think it's a more explainable circumstance? Either way, it created Freddy Krueger, and that makes me incredibly happy because Freddy is one of my all-time favorite characters. I have a handful of ones that I love, but Freddy is definitely up there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to Jason Riddle and my other Patreon peeps for making this video possible. All of my Patreon peeps are listed in the description below, and I love you guys. You guys are fantastic. Thank you for supporting me and doing what I'm doing. Thank you to all of you for supporting me by watching my videos, because really, I do this for you, to share with other people my thoughts and opinions on the weird. And it's cool that we have a community of people who's into this stuff too. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you can do one of those, that's fine too. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and turn on notifications, that way you get notified every time that I upload. Hopefully I'll be uploading again soon, because if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen when I got my hair did by the very amazing, talented Asia. Thank you so much. We had a blast hanging out, doing my hair, and then we also did some creepy things that I filmed for YouTube. So that video is coming up in the very near future. Look out for that. A hint as to what that would be in my Instagram feed. So if you don't follow me there, you could go check that out. If you guys live in the Indianapolis area and want to get your hair done, seriously, I know somebody. She's awesome. Thank you so much again for watching. I love you. I'm Kat. This is Paranormal Kativity. Have a strange day. Bye.